Can two people, one with an anxious attachment style and another with an avoidant attachment style, be in a happy, healthy relationship? Hi everyone, Mireille Nicole here. Today I am doing a shout out to my old high school, École Secondaire Renmer. We had the 50th anniversary this year, so anyways, just wanted to highlight that. But in today's video, I want to talk about whether or not two people with two very different attachment styles can coexist and create an amazing relationship. The thing is, someone with an anxious attachment style is going to exacerbate people or a partner with an avoidant attachment style, and it just becomes this vicious circle. The avoidant will push all the buttons of the anxious, and it just goes on, and it can get really frustrating and unsatisfying as a couple. So what's the difference between an anxious and avoidant attachment style? What exactly does it mean? In a nutshell, it all has to do with a level of comfort with closeness and intimacy, and also in terms of how much focus and emphasis is on the relationship. So someone who is anxious is going to really need to have a lot more emotional support, maybe emotional needs met, a lot of closeness in the relationship, a lot of reassurance, they're going to need a lot of security in the relationship. And someone with an avoidant attachment, they also require a certain level of security, but they will tend to be more independent, more autonomous. They are really not going to want to feel like they're on this like tight chain. They will keep their partners more at arm's length. So you can see how these are two very opposing attachment styles. When it comes to the focus on the relationship, the anxious attachment style partner is going to be a lot more focused, even maybe obsessed over the relationship. And anytime it seems like any little thing might be going wrong or there's a threat to the relationship, they will feel really, really consumed by that. Whereas the avoidant attachment style partner is going to not obsess so much over the relationship. They can just kind of disappear for a bit, whether it's emotionally or physically, and they're going to be okay. They don't have so much of that need to really obsess or be concerned about what's going on with the relationship, even though they still desire that love. Because at the end of the day, one thing that's important to remember, both attachment styles do want intimacy. It's not necessarily that avoidants are incapable of wanting love or being in a relationship. It just comes back to attachment style, which could be the result of a whole bunch of different factors. But for now, let's stick to whether or not these two attachment styles can have an amazing relationship and happily ever after together. I was super excited to record this video because I know for myself, this is something that was really apparent in my relationship right now with my current husband back when we were still dating. At the beginning of our relationship together, it seemed like we were both secure. Things were going well in our relationship. We were both meeting each other's needs. You could say that, hey, it was the honeymoon phase, so everything was like perfect, rose-colored glasses and whatnot. But obviously, after a while, the longer we were in a relationship together and the more we had to deal with life's challenges and obstacles, it started being apparent what type of attachment style we both tended to lean towards. So when things started getting very shaky for myself, it became very obvious to me now. Back then, I didn't see myself that way, but I could see that I was feeling really anxious, and I was demonstrating those characteristics of someone having an anxious attachment style. So I was having a lot of difficulty expressing my needs, communicating how I feel, and I felt really insecure. I was really starting to wonder whether or not this relationship was going anywhere. It would consume me. I always felt like I was someone who was mostly independent, but I got to a space where I was really, really concerned about where this was going. I wasn't hanging around with my friends as much, and it was really apparent that I had my anxious attachment style activated. Whereas for my partner, so my boyfriend back then, because we weren't married at this point, he tended to be more avoidant, right? So I felt him more shut down during this phase, distance himself, disconnect. I wasn't feeling that same level of empathy necessarily. He would hang out with his friends more. He'd be more dismissive of my feelings, etc. So looking back now, I can see that he he was using disactivating strategies, right, in order to kind of function in this dysfunction that we had created together as a result of the dynamic between the two of us. And I would say as a result of the relationship skills or lack thereof. I'll talk about that more in a minute. So we found ourselves in this cycle, this vicious cycle of not meeting each other's needs, not understanding each other anymore. And it was really confusing because, like I said, at the beginning of the relationship, it seemed like everything was okay, like we were secure, like we were going to make it through anything. But like I said again, once the challenges came in, it just became clear kind of what was missing in our relationship. And now it all makes sense when I look back on it. And I wanted to record this video because sometimes we hear these labels and these terms thrown out in the relationship world, right? Narcissist, avoidant, anxious attachment styles, codependent, lack of empathy, all those terms, right? And we tend to really identify, and sometimes it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that that is just who a person is and ignoring the fact that sometimes it's just the dynamic between the two of you. And if you can properly and effectively address the dynamic, then you can kind of disactivate, I shouldn't use that term because it's confusing, right? In terms of disactivating strategies for avoidant attachment style partners, but it kind of reduces that perception of being a certain label. So what do I mean by that? And how did we make it through? So when I started really working on my relationship skills, and what I mean by relationship skills, how I kind of package those, I'm talking about emotional mastery. I'm talking about communication skills, negotiation skills, conflict management, really understanding men, how to show up in a relationship and give a partner what they need so you can also get what you need also. So once I started working on all of that for myself, by the way, not necessarily from the perspective of having an obsession with my relationship and kind of feeding into my anxious attachment style tendency, but when I really started focusing it for myself and with a no matter what attitude, in other words, when I started being more secure, feeling more secure in my relationship, then I noticed that my partner was also feeling more secure. And I highlighted the fact that when this was all happening, we weren't married yet. My partner and I had been dating for many, many, many years at that point. Like I think we had been dating maybe 6 years by that point. And it was just getting rockier and on shakier ground. And it didn't seem to me like we were ever going to get married at all. But when I started doing this work to kind of undo the attachment style dynamic that was going on and really working on creating a secure, healthy relationship dynamic, my man actually got on one knee and proposed, and we were married like 6 months later. And so the answer to the question, like, can someone with an attachment style that is anxious live happily ever after with someone who has an avoidant attachment style? My answer is yes, and I am the evidence of that. So I really encourage you, if you find yourself in a situation where it looks like one of you is anxious or avoidant and vice versa, and things are kind of rocky and shaky, of course, you can always decide to leave the relationship and go find a partner that is secure, or you can see if it's the dynamic that's at play. And I have to say for myself, I'm really happy that I really looked at my own role in terms of the partnership, in terms of how I showed up, because I can't imagine what I would have missed out on if I would have just said, okay, well, it's going to be way easier for me to just find someone with a secure attachment style who can handle my anxiety. I wouldn't have wanted to live my life with an anxious attachment style. And I know and I realize that if you're with someone who's secure, they will always keep you in your comfort zone, theoretically, and you'll never have to really experience that anxious attachment style so much. But for me, I much prefer, and I love the empowerment of knowing that how I showed up and the work that I did on myself is what turned things around for me. I didn't have to depend on someone else to be a certain way for me to be okay in my love life, right? I'm all about women empowerment. Sometimes it sounds like I'm either on the man's side or, I'm talking about things that are old-fashioned, but at the end of the day, everything I share is from the perspective of women empowerment. And this is an example, right, where I really took responsibility for what was going on. And I encourage you to follow in a similar path if you can relate to my story, to see what's really going on, because no matter what, doing this work is going to get you to that relationship that you desire. At the end of the day, what worked for us, and the goal in any relationship where there's going to be someone who's anxious and someone who's avoidant, you're going to want to be that safe space for one another. other. So if you're the one who's anxious, you're going to need to work with your partner in a way where you can feel secure with that person. And likewise, for the other person, you're going to have to make it a safe space for them to have that sense and that need of autonomy respected at the same time. And really what we noticed, like when I did the work in my own personal situation, is we both tended to become a lot more secure and not need so much to kind of respect those attachment styles anymore. They kind of like withered away a little bit. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. Yes, it is possible for someone with an anxious attachment style and an avoidant attachment style to be together. My husband and I are evidence of this. If you have any questions about the relationship skills I talked about or support with this, make sure to click on the application link below and let's have a chat. In the meantime, if you have any questions, opinions on this topic, leave them down below in the comments. I will get back to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.